I dare you to fix me. I'm crossing the line again, falling on my knees. No.
Over, some of you will consider me as an enemy. But I wanted to share a couple minutes about my thoughts, not only on the tragedies that we have been experiencing over these past months, and especially these last couple of days with the shootings of our black men, but what I'm coming to learn over my 23-year journey of being a white man, living and ministering amongst my black family here in several inner cities of Chicago. And I'm going to speak very black and white because, let's be honest, it's a black and white issue. I want to take you to the book of Exodus, chapter 1, and I wanted to share a little bit of what took place prior to the rise of Moses. When I read that, it talked about that the Pharaoh became concerned and very fearful that the Hebrew slaves were growing in number and in power. So in order to maintain their oppression, he put upon them great labor. He put upon the Hebrew slaves cruelty to keep them down. However, they still grew. And so he brought together some midwives, and he instructed them that when a Hebrew boy was born, kill him. Well, these midwives did not follow, and the Hebrew slaves continued to grow. Eventually, the Pharaoh became so hatred towards those Hebrew slaves that he made a decree. He put out an order that male baby boy Hebrew slaves were to be killed by casting them into the Nile River. Let's look at America. We brought blacks into this country as slaves. We never intended them to be anything other than a slave. But they began to grow in number and in power, and eventually they fought their way to some freedom. So we became even more cruel, and to keep our black Americans down, we lynched, but yet they rose. So then we used the welfare system, the criminal justice system, to keep them down, to contain them, to destroy them, but yet they rose and they're rising. Then we built prisons and jails to hold them. Yet they rose. And so now we are doing exactly what the Pharaoh did at the end, sending out a decree, kill them. So until we admit that when we wrote this Constitution that all men are created equal, that we never intended to include our black brothers and sisters, our nation may end up facing exactly what the Egyptians faced when they refused to let God's people go. So I'm going to say this to my white fellow Americans, that the bloodshed that is on its way is not on the hands of our fellow black Americans, but is on our hands. We are the ones that are refusing to let God's people go. Let's look at America. We brought blacks into this country as slaves. We never intended them to be anything other than a slave. But they began to grow in number and in power, And eventually they fought their way to some freedom. So we became even more cruel. And to keep our black Americans down, we lynched. But yet they rose. So then we used the welfare system, the criminal justice system, to keep them down, to contain them, to destroy them. But yet they rose and they're rising. Then we built prisons and jails to hold them. Yet they rose. And so now we are doing exactly what the Pharaoh did at the end, sending out a decree, kill them. So until we admit that when we wrote this Constitution that all men are created equal, that we never intended to include our black brothers and sisters, our nation may end up facing exactly what the Egyptians faced when they refused to let God's people go. So I'm going to say this to my white fellow Americans, that the bloodshed that is on its way is not on the hands of our fellow black Americans, but is on our hands. We are the ones that are refusing to let God's people go.
Greetings. I had a dream the other night, but it was in direct correlation to me watching the gentleman that I put in front of the video. I seen that video, and then that night I had a very, very vivid dream, and the Lord told me to share the dream. The pictures before are pictures of like Hawaiian warriors. Did want to give you a visual of what I was actually seeing in the dream. It was a huge, enormous ship, and not just a regular like cruise line ship. Let's just say let's put two of those cruise lines ships together, and just huge, like gigantic, the kind that make people look small, and these certainly weren't any small people. Before I get into it, I did want to say that God has given me revelation on the dream, and I am to share the revelation. And so I want you to visualize a Hawaiian royalty, very top tier, high exclusive, the highest type royalty that there is. So this was a very organized movement. I remember looking and observing all these things. And so what I saw was thousands of men, and it was a very organized effort to get these men off the ship and on their way to move into battle. So on every turn there was 3 or 4 men that were the boss of, like the supervisor, I would say, for lack of a better word. But and they had first of all, the thing that they were letting them down into the water, it was made of gold. I mean, there was very vivid colors. The guys had on like deep royal, like the deepest red you can imagine. They were very tall, all of them looked like the guys, if you've ever seen the movie 300, how these were very barbaric looking, like strong, manly men. They were all like that. and some bigger than others, but they were in warrior attire, but Hawaiian style. Why Hawaiian, I'm not sure. I just can tell you what I've seen. And they were all suited up. Had drapes on. At least the supervisors did. It doesn't even feel right to call them supervisors, because I'll just call it what they were. They're high-level angels. And that's what the Lord revealed to me, that this fleet of men are very top-tier, high-level angels. And so I can bring it to you this way. You know the angel Michael, how he is not just an ordinary angel. Like, he is spared for the huge battles. Like, he just doesn't get called out as an angel for just ordinary things, like they're big things. So Michael was just one of the many thousands of the men that were ready for battle. Now, Michael being on that level, there were still other angels. I'm calling them angels because God that has revealed that's what they were. But they look like men. Imagine that there was like, I don't know, 100 of the top tier bosses observing and organized. It was a very organized method, and how they were actually entering to the water, and the looks on their face. God allowed me to see the look. They were not playing. This was not a ordinary look. This was a look of a mission only. Not gonna stop until this mission is accomplished. Nothing can get in my way. Nothing can get in my way. I'm on assignment and I'm gonna finish it. But it's very vivid in my mind, and I don't always remember my dreams, but this is a very special message, and as well it's a warning. It's a warning for the things that are to come. And God wanted me to put it out there so as many, like the gentleman said, can repent. Repent for their ways, because there is going to be major bloodshed for those that don't. The more time passes by, the more that I can remember more on the dream, and it becomes so clear. This is not a hoax. This is something that I truly dreamed, and a true warning from the Lord. As I can recall, this was a very organized effort. And as mentioned, these are angels. And not just ordinary angels. These are God's elite army that is designed for war and for the top-tiered crisis in the world. When God releases this army, things are going to happen. And just as in the Bible, a lot of people didn't heed the warnings. And so a lot of you may not take this serious, but it would behoove you to take it serious. God told me they are already here. And what he meant is that his army is already here. And for those that do not repent and do not have a change of heart, God have mercy on them, because it's not going to be good. Getting back to the ship and how the angels, I was calling them men, and it was a little early, but as time passes by, God reveals more to me in regards to that dream. Again, these were warriors. And the pictures really don't give what I saw justice, Just imagine the reds that you see these Hawaiian warriors in, times 10, a deeper red times 10. And the gold was just eye piercing. Their skin was flawless. The look on their face was determination, was mission, and nothing could stop them. They were on a mission from God, and it's not going to stop until they're done. I said that 2 cruise ships would give it justice, but thinking about it, even 2 cruise ships together is not as enormous as the ships that I've seen. And the loading dock, they were letting them out of the back of the ship into the ocean. And as mentioned, I called them bosses, but they're like commanders, sergeants. I'm not too familiar with the military, but think of like the highest rank. They were very organized, and there was not one army man that was out of place. Once they entered the water, they became invisible. I seen them loading in the water, so I knew they were there, but I couldn't see them with my human eye. And I remember staring into the water like, I know they're there. I just seen them. And as I was looking, more were going into the water, and I would see them get into the water, and they didn't have on masks, snorkel gear, tanks, or anything like that. They just went into the water, then disappeared once they were in the water. So God has told me they are already here, and they are not playing people. Repent now, turn to God, turn away from your evil ways, and save your family, save yourself. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, and I pray that God has mercy. I pray God has mercy on your soul. Please heed this warning.